Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
I made your mistake this week. Last week, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you
ago.
went for a run before the podcast, and then you sat down and you were literally looked like you were in a sauna. Because when you start running, your butt kind of keeps pumping. And I'm literally sitting here, and if you're watching the video, yes, I am a puddle.
Sweaty mess.
Literally, I'm always a sweaty mess, but I'm just a puddle today. But you know what else made me a bit of a puddle?
That was weird.
Transition to it.
What made you a puddle?
I was going to say what's awkward. Puddle, awkward, same. Had to do a sample thing because obviously we're going through the IUI. Is that
IUI,
right?
yeah.
So kind of not IVF, but kind of doing IUI things. We had to do a sample, a male sample. That's where I'm going to go with that. And the first time, if you watched my stories back in the day, I got lost. So I had the sample and I took it. I said I took the kids for a spin because I went to all these places and they weren't open and blah, blah. But yes, the other week it went a lot more simple, but it is still very awkward when you go in there and they're ask you the questions. They ask you hey, did you miss any of it? And I'm this is...
And then pull the sample out and write on the container and just stick this sticker on it. You're do you really want to see it?
Literally, you're holding there like this and you're writing on it. But yeah, I don't want to touch too much into it because I think we need to do an episode later on and talk about kind of the whole process and, from a bariatric standpoint and how it's all going. It's a process that we're just going to, go with the flow, see what happens. And, hopefully it just happens. But, we just got to cover all bases just in case. But, covering... No, I guess today, and I feel I'll let you do your intro, but I think she deserves a special intro because, she turned into Mike Tyson and
Rocky Balboa. I don't even know his name. Rocky
we're going to fresh on after it. We're kind of like a post-match interview.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting her on to give her 2 cents about her little experience, which we'll touch on straight away as soon as we introduce her. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a good little guest.
So today's guest was born into the bariatric world at the same time as us, sleeved in July of 2018. She went under the knife at 155 kilos and has since lost more than 70 kg. 3.5 years down the track, she's definitely flipped her life around and come back fighting. See what I did there? Here to talk to us about her journey today is Averly, also known as all the underscores and Aves and then all the underscores afterwards on Instagram.
Yeah, we'll put it down below.
I'll link it, don't worry. Welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, I feel
if there's any way I could get my username on.
I need to do the proper introduction. Be in the red corner.
But you were in the blue corner though, weren't you?
It was blue, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. In the blue corner. Not going to lie, if I was going to do a boxing match, I would choose blue because, you're going to get me in red. So, good choice.
No, you don't get to choose, unfortunately.
Oh, well, great convenience. I'm not going to lie. Boxing has always been doing a fight in a ring like that is something I've always been oh, that'd be really cool to do. But I kind of have this a fear of getting punched in the nose. It's kind of I just don't want to get punched in the face. Okay. Yeah. But is that something you had to manage with? Is it something you've always wanted to do and had a bit of is there any anxious feelings towards it at all?
Well, I've always wanted to try boxing, but the fight side of it just sort of has been there for about 2 years. So it's just where else do you go? We've been, learning to box for 2 years, so why not?
Put the skills to use. Yeah.
Did you ever think, looking back to prior to surgery, thinking about where you'd be now, did you ever think that you would ever be in a boxing ring, doing an amateur fight?
God, no.
that wasn't your why. You're that's it. I'm going to do this because I want to do is get in this ring and be fit enough to.
Yeah, all I want to do is hit someone. No.
Yeah, she had all this built up anger and she's taking it out. Yeah.
So tell us about the fight. Was it 3 2-minute rounds or I don't know anything
How'd they structure
really
it?
About boxing.
It's 3 1-minute rounds, which I think might have been because we're amateur. We've never done it before. Not a lot of us had experience.
Yep.
So it was just the whole thing. We rocked up to the reception hall at about 4:30. They had a room out the back separated into red and blue. Had to front up and see a doctor and
Wow.
And they took us on like a tour to show us where we had to go and what was going to happen on the night. And then,
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because I watched your video, and like, you know, to like anyone, a minute doesn't sound like a long time, but I watched your video before and like of kind of one of your round things, and you could just, your body the whole time was like, you know, tensed up, like, you know, and moving, and like that minute would feel like an eternity in there, because like I noticed as soon as you finished the round went off, you went, like kind of like
I know.
Yeah, it's like your body's
I probably wasn't supposed to do that. Like they always say, you know, you're supposed to be relaxed and everything, but
You're like, I'm literally fighting with someone. How can I be relaxed?
Someone is trying to kill me. I cannot relax.
Yeah.
It's like, let me hold this gun to your face. Relax. Trust me.
So how did the fight go for anybody who hasn't seen it on Instagram?
Well, being an exhibition match, we could choose to be scored or unscored. So I thought, well, I don't really see the need to be scored and be declared a winner, so to speak. So I just said, no, I won't do that. So yeah, it was just more for the experience and to get in there and see what it's like.
Yeah. And what did you rate it? Like, you know, you rate it? Is it something you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I'd definitely do it again. It was amazing.
Wow. So keep our eyes peeled for when you're going to be on, like, is it competition level? Like, winning your next thing is like the big belt.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind one of those.
New accessory.
Look at eBay. That's really cool. I think that's freaking awesome. So like, let's kind of like take a step back and like, obviously now you're like, you know, boxing world champion, but you know, let's take a step back to like before surgery. What was it that made you kind of take the leap and like decide that bariatric surgery was for you?
I was in a pretty bad place before surgery. I just sort of given up. I was like, I'm just going to be this way forever. Nothing I do works. I can't walk anywhere without being saturated in perspiration. I'm having trouble breathing. I can't find clothes to fit me. I look terrible. And I just have enough, basically.
Yeah. Being 155 kilos, how tall are you?
I'm 171 centimetres, so about 5'7".
5'7", yeah. So that is, like, that's, you know, so 70 kilos lost. That's freaking insane. You know, so it would play a part in just everyday life, just not being able to just function.
I couldn't. Yeah, tie my shoelaces. I'd have to put my legs up on the bed to tie my shoelaces and stuff. And
I think we can all relate to that. I had days like that as well. But so when you were thinking about having weight loss surgery, was your initial goal like specifically just to lose the weight? Like that's all you were going into this for? Like it wasn't necessarily like to, you know, get rid of like high blood pressure and all those sorts of things. Like was weight loss your number one priority?
I don't think it was. I think it was more to just feel better in myself. I do have polycystic ovary syndrome, and I was always told by doctors, specialists, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight. But as we know, that doesn't always fix everything.
Yep.
So I guess maybe helped a little bit. But, you know, it was just to get back a quality of life and just to feel better about myself.
And how's that going? Like, how are you feeling? Like, where you're at? Like, obviously, what, 4 years? It's almost 4 years.
3.5.
3.5 years out. Yeah. How's it? Like, obviously, it's not going to happen overnight, but do you feel like it's heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I definitely made the right decision. I feel 100 times better. And I'm actually, you know, feel happy about going out and doing things. I don't just want to hide or sleep all day.
Yeah.
That's a massive
well, you're living
thing.
life.
Yeah.
You know, you're actually living life. You're not just existing. Yeah, I say that all the time.
It's such a hard thing too, because I know that prior to me having surgery, we were sort of trying to diagnose if I had polycystic ovarian syndrome as well, and we went through all the testing, and it always came back inconclusive because it's one of that and endometriosis is so hard to actually diagnose. And I ended up just getting over it and just being like, you know what, I'm just going to say I've got it because we just can't, you know, figure it out. But then their biggest thing was always like, oh, lose weight and it will help it. But then one of the like side effects of having PCOS is that it's extremely hard to lose the weight. And I was just like, I used to get so fed up because like sitting there at 127 kilos and them going, just lose weight and it'll fix all your problems. It's just kind of like, oh my God. It's just, I don't know. I started feeling a bit like disheartened in the medical industry, I guess, because it's kind of like you go in, and we've spoken to so many guests before about this, you know, they go in with like a twisted ankle and they go, oh, well, you know, if you lost a bit of weight, like I feel like as a bigger person, it didn't matter what your situation was, they'd always blame your weight for it.
It's an easy out. I think it's very similar to like being at school and like, you know, he has ADHD, you know, like it's that kind of write off. It's like, oh, well, he can't learn because he has you know, rather than finding what works for that person, you know, they're going off like the mainstream vision of what you should be and going, well, if you stray away from that, that's the reason it's not working for you. You know, so.
Prior to having the surgery, had you tried, like everybody else, all the diets under the sun? You know, you did all the meal replacements and the shakes and the subscription diets and everything?
It was more, even I don't even remember how old I was. I was probably a teenager. I'd been to see a naturopath. I'd done Weight Watchers. I did light and easy before we got married. I was walking like 4 or 5 kilometres almost every day. Before our wedding, and I got down to like 133 kilos or something, and it just stopped. And I was like, what's going on? You know, why? You know? And the doctor just basically said, at your size, your body is just gone, I'm just going to stay here and chill, like, you know. And he's like, you can't do it on your own. You need to have the surgery.
Wow. So I'm assuming weight has been like, were you a bigger kid? Like, or have you always been bigger, or is it kind of just happened in your teenage years?
Well, as far as I can recall, I've always been bigger, but I've seen like my girlfriend's got photos of me in primary school, whereas if I turned sideways, I would have disappeared. And I'm like, I don't even remember being like that. I don't even remember being that small.
Yeah, far out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is. It's like kind of like, I'm the same. Like I think when I was like 17, I was quite skinny because I played a lot of golf and walked around a lot.
Well, in your wedding photos, you're quite skinny.
Yeah, I lost weight and then I put it straight back on because I got married. You know, I think that was like one of the last attempts I had at losing weight. I think I lost 40 or 50 kilos playing football and restricting my eating, and then I got married and got comfortable, and then it all came back plus some. So yeah, I think we've all been there.
Because I know on mine, like my weight started like when I was about 10, and we thought it was just because like my parents went through a separation and they're still together now, but like it was just my dad had cancer, and it was just like a very traumatic, emotional time for me. And I think that's when I started to gain the weight. Like as a young kid, I was, you know, a little bit chubby, but most kids, you know, go through that stage where they're a bit chubby and then they start like playing sports and running around and stuff. So I was quite slim, and then all of a sudden I just ballooned.
And you owed a lot to like that kind of emotional period?
I think it was an emotional, I didn't know how to, I went to a child psychologist for a little while there, and I like, you know, kept food diaries, and then because my mum was a very overweight kid, she was overweight until she was about 30. So my mum grew up with diet culture as well. So I think from the very young age, it was like enforced into me as well. Like, you know, eat healthy, exercise. And like when you're 10, the last thing you want to do is like be sort of like forced, pressurized into living a certain lifestyle. So I guess
you're always going to push back.
Yeah.
Did you have a point in your like life that you kind of look back on as that, like where was a point in your life where you kind of look at it and go, oh, that was probably, like for me, it was getting married, you know, it was the last kind of thing, you know, I got, I guess, complacent, you know, Alita's kind of putting it onto earlier, a little bit of emotional connection to food through what was going on in her life. Do you have any points in your life that you kind of feel like that was kind of a defining moment in like your lead up to needing bariatric surgery?
Probably when I was in high school, and I was with someone, and then it ended up being a pretty terrible relationship. And I think it all just went downhill from there. It was horrible to me. In the end, I guess I was horrible to him. You know, it was just toxic and bad. And then I had a car accident and, just lost everything. And then after that, I think the relationship pretty much destroyed me as a person.
Yeah.
And I just lost myself, I think.
Yeah. It was funny because actually I had a conversation with one of my neighbors the other day because he came out and he goes, oh, I still can't believe you used to be bigger and da-da-da-da. And I said, yeah, you know, like had weight loss surgery, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that, you know, weight loss surgery, you know. And we kind of talked about the stigma behind it a little bit. And I said, it's funny, like, because I sit down and we talk to a lot of bariatric, you know, people who've gone through bariatric surgery. And I said, it's just funny, like we have so many similarities through like what led us to needing it, you know, like early on in life, having either toxic relationships, toxic partners, you know, trauma of some sort, you know, like a parents had broken down, and like, it always stems from kind of an emotional, connection to food because of like a patch in our life.
Yeah, well, no one's like, I was so happy that I just ate myself.
Yeah.
Well, not ate myself. I ate myself to like being overweight. Like I was just too happy all the time.
Yeah. 'Cause you kind of like don't take that approach to food if you kind of have a
healthy relationship with yourself and your family.
Yeah, because it's kind of like self-sabotage kind of to a degree.
Well, somebody said to me that it was like, it felt like it was the only thing that they could control in a really bad situation. So like, they turned to food because in the situation that they were in, they couldn't control what was happening around them, but they could control what they used to put in their mouth, like be it good or bad food. So that was their way of feeling like they had some sort of control over their life again through food.
So you obviously, you knew it was the path bariatric surgery when you got to it. Was there any fears you had kind of leading into surgery though? Like that after surgery, certain things wouldn't be possible or anything?
I think I was worried that I would stop eating, that I would actually need people to remind me that I needed to eat, because I'd read about so I don't know if I can say it properly, that ghrelin hormone.
Oh, ghrelin.
Yeah, that one. I was like, oh, if I lose that, am I going to forget to eat? Like, what's going to happen? And I was kind of scared about that, which is bizarre. Like, you're scared that you're not going to eat, which I guess shows,
how the connection with food was. Like, I don't want to forget about
connection.
you.
Yeah, I don't want to lose you.
No, it's a rational fear, to be honest, because I think we talked about it on an episode a couple of weeks back where we talked about how that was kind of a semi-fear of mine, like just losing that relationship to food where like, am I ever going to be able to eat again? Like, I don't understand, and because I had no one around me that kind of had gone through it, they couldn't say, no, don't be stupid. Like, of course you can. I kind of just like got in my own head and was like, oh my God. But I like food. Like, I don't want to have to like give it away. Yeah.
Did you work with a nutritionalist or a dietitian or anything like that after surgery to help you like sort of overcome that fear and like for them to kind of hold your hand and be like, don't worry, you will be able to eat again?
Not really, actually. Our nutritionist wasn't exactly present, I guess you could say. But I think I just thought I will just go for it and
see how it goes.
We'll see what happens.
You just winged it.
Yeah.
And how did it go? How did the stages go for you after surgery?
They were all pretty cruisy, except for I think it was the transition from soft to solid. I just couldn't get it. And I got to the point where we'd go out somewhere, and I was like, I'm like, what am I going to eat? Because everything comes back. I'm like, so in the end, I was just ordering like soups because I just knew I'd be safe, and I wouldn't be sick, and I wouldn't ruin the night. And that got to the point where I was like, am I ever going to be able to get onto solid food? Because it's just like nothing was working.
Like, yeah. So was it like physically being sick, like vomiting, or was it just that really uncomfortable feeling to get, like the thick saliva kind of? Because when you bypass a sleeve.
Sleeve.
Yeah. So was it that uncomfortable saliva sick feeling?
I think it was. Might have actually been a little bit of being physically sick, but it's just not a nice feeling, as we all know.
Yeah.
And when you go out, you don't want to ruin the night because you're unwell or you're in pain or
take away from someone else's experience because of yours. Yeah, I totally get that. I had a conversation actually to someone the other day because I was saying, I keep vomiting and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I was the same. I think I vomited like 6-7 times when I hit soft food stage, mainly because I was like so excited to be able to have like eggs and stuff that I was eating it too fast. Which is something I had to adjust to. And I still these days sometimes do it. And you go like, you scoff your face, and you got to understand it takes a little bit for the food to get from your mouth to your stomach. And then it all hits at once and you're like, oh, I made a terrible mistake.
So gonna go die now.
I'm gonna die now. Or you do it later and you take a walk around the block.
Yeah, go for a walk around the block.
Up. Yeah, she does that. So you're, obviously being 4 years down. Like, how have you found the years? Like, with the whole restriction side of things. Like, have you got to a point now where you feel like it's non-existent, or does it still stick around every now and then? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely off and on. I don't think anymore. I'm not scared about how much I can eat. It's definitely still there. I think it's now it's not. I don't think it's too bad. I think I do all right. don't eat too much.
I got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
Any food you have to steer clear of or anything?
Yeah, is there anything that you've like completely restrict from your diet?
It's not really a restriction, but there's certain ways that rice is cooked that I can't stomach it. So I can eat sushi fine, but if someone made like a stir fry with rice, I couldn't eat it because most likely it'll probably come back up later.
Oh, wow. So it's maybe too gluggy or too thick or something.
Yeah, I think probably just in the bits, I guess. And there's a certain way, like pulled pork or something. There's a certain one that doesn't sit right. I don't know. I think it's the texture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you rate your pre-surgery relationship with food to now? Like, do you feel like you have a better understanding of calories in, calories out, and like that kind of aspect, or are you still something you're struggling with? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think it's better. I do understand that way of being in a calorie deficit. Obviously, having been at the gym for 2 years, we've gone over that plenty of times. I think I do have a better relationship. Like, I've got an understanding of what I need to eat to make sure that I'm getting enough nutrients and enough protein and enough what I need on a daily basis. But I also know that it's okay to enjoy things like chocolate and ice cream and that every now and then. So I think it's definitely a lot better than what it was.
Do you feel like the gym's playing a huge part to your weight like maintenance and stuff? Like, is that kind of like the key element that's kind of helping you?
I do. Sometimes I've been like, my God, if I wasn't going to the gym, I probably would have, stacked on a whole heap of weight. I think I'm just lucky that I found something that I enjoy doing that's not so easy to walk away from. And I really think that's how I've been able to stay, okay.
Yeah.
Only putting on 3 or 4 kilos, but still that can be distressing for me in my way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. I 100% agree. I'm the same with running. It's like I always have these like anxiety kind of feelings about like what happens one day if like I can't do it, because I know at the moment I do still have bad habits that are there that I'm working on, and running, for example, is kind of offsetting it enough that it's not really it's not showing in the way of like weight and scales, because obviously it's offsetting each other. But it's like what happens one day if like I can't do it. That's always like in the back of my head. Like, what happens if like, I had a sciatic issue and I couldn't run for like, 3-4 weeks. And then it was like, longer than that actually. And then I kind of was like, oh God, like I've really got to watch my food now. I've got to, almost felt like I was going back to a diet mentality of like having to watch what I eat, because I knew I couldn't run it off to a degree.
That's kind of where I'm at the moment, because like I've got, my knee is super inflamed at the moment. I'm finding it really hard to walk, let alone do anything else. But I'm just I've been pushing through it for like the last 2-3 weeks, and it's gotten to the point now that like I'm like a 90-year-old woman every time I try to stand up and walk somewhere. So I've got to go and get an MRI on it and stuff. But I'm petrified about them finding what's wrong with my knee, because I know that when I was 25 I got told that I needed a full knee replacement, but they wouldn't do it. So I'm now turning 34 this year. I'm almost 10 years down the track, and I know that it's coming, and I'm really scared about that it's happening now, and that I'm not going to be able to run, walk, go to the gym, like do anything for the next, if I have an operation, for like the next sort of 6 to 12 weeks. And I'm scared. Like I'm much like you, Shannon, and you, like we spend so much time at the gym and like almost sort of offsetting those little bad behaviors that we've let creep back in, that, I don't know if I've got a strong enough foundation nutritionally to make sure that if I'm not moving, that I don't regain. Like it's something that I guess I've got to sort of face at the moment, and just make sure that I start making those changes now, just in case they do say to me, we've got to go in and operate, and
you can't do it for like 3 months.
Yeah, like I'm petrified.
Yeah. Is that like, has it been a concern for you as well, like in the back of your head?
Yeah.
Like, have you started putting things in place just in case, or have you like?
Yeah. So I'm supposed to have my first round of plastics at the start of next month.
Oh yeah.
Which will put me out of the gym for about 6 weeks. And then it's going to be a gradual thing. And I think with boxing, it's kind of hard to gradually, go back. You can't sort of, slowly punch a bag. It sort of doesn't work like that. It's a bit funny. So, yeah, I am worried about that time I'm going to be off the gym and not able to actually do a workout. And I've said to my trainer, I'm like, I don't want to balloon out while I'm off. I'm like, I don't want to lose all the hard work that I've put in. And he's like, well, just do what you can now before your surgery, and then just, you know, try and make sure you've got things in place so that you don't lose control while you're not training.
Yeah. What plastics are you going with? What are you getting done?
Lower body lift.
Yep. Okay. Well, the arms are still all right. Like, you kind of just do like this speed bag, you know, like so you just do like this little
because 70 kilos is an incredible amount of weight to lose. Do you have a lot of loose skin, or is it it to the point where it's like it's, you know, causing rashes and that sort of thing, or is it just more uncomfortable and that sort of thing?
A bit of both. So I probably don't get rashes as much as a lot of people. It's more when I exercise. I found through Kmart, they're more like bathers really, but they're like neoprene bathers and they work like compression. If I don't wear them, my stomach gets, like if I have to jump up and down and something, you know, doing star jumps or whatever, or doing other certain exercises, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it hurts as well. Like it's actually painful. So it does get in the way of exercising a little bit, of being uncomfortable and sort of feel things moving that you don't think should be moving, and you're like, oh my god,
You're like, I got a third boob. I always think that with boobs when I see girls like do it. I'm like, that has to be uncomfortable. Like,
well, that's why sports bras, and there's things called sports bras. You can't really tuck your loose skin into.
Well, there we go. Guys,
market.
Invention.
Yeah, there we go.
Call it a loose skin bra. That's a little bit awkward.
Oh god.
Our question.
It's a very niche market.
Hey, Bariatric community is growing. You know, we're all becoming little Barries. So the question of the week this week, as I move on from that, our stomach bra, is our question of the week is, you know, your self-worth, if you had to rate it from 1 to 10, where you're at versus where you were, what would you rate it at pre-surgery and what would you rate it now out of 10?
Oh, pre-surgery, geez. I don't know, like a 1 or a 2.
Oh, solid. Okay. Yeah. And now where you gauging, you reckon, if you had to like just go quick fire out of 10, it is?
Probably an 8.
Oh,
oh wow, that's really good.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, God, that's the victory in bariatric surgery. I reckon. You know, as much as you've lost 70 kilos, your self-worth is at an 8 from a 2. Like that is like the difference between night and day kind of thing. That's crazy.
That is insane. Is it something that you've had to work on a lot though, or is it sort of just kind of come naturally as you've sort of, you know, lost the weight, become, you know, a pro boxer and gotten all your confidence? Like, is it something that you're obviously continuously working on and growing through?
Yeah, definitely. I've had to work like so hard. And I think also taking part in the fight on Friday night has something that's just like cemented it in me that, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, what people say to you, or, you know, you can't do that. Well, yes, I can. If I want to do that, I can do it, you know.
Yeah.
It's because, I have had a lot of, you can't do that because of this, you can't do that because of, now I'm just like, well, yeah, I can do it because, you know, I want to do it and I know I'm capable.
Yeah. I was going to say that. How's your support network been around like bariatric surgery and stuff like that, and like, you know, your decisions since? Like, you know, do you feel like you have a good core support network, or do you feel like there's always like someone in the background that may come forward and like say something and you're kind of like, oh God, can people just like, you know, trust in my decisions for one? You know, how's it been in that kind of side of things?
It's been pretty good, I think. Everyone's been like really supportive about everything. There's been the occasional thing of, you know, a bit earlier on before you settle into maybe the weight you should be, where people are like, oh, you're too skinny. And it's like, seriously, you used to tell me I was too fat. Now you're telling me I'm too skinny? Like, are you ever going to be happy?
Yeah.
It's like, and then it's like, well, it doesn't matter what you think, you know. I feel good, so...
Yeah. Isn't it like in other people's, I could never imagine being that person where I look at someone and go, you're not what I expect you to be, so I'm going to tell you that. Like, that's a weird, like kind of like conversation to have, like where you feel like you know where they should be better than they know.
Yeah, but I like what Mad said last week was that, like, you know, what other people think about her isn't any of her business. And I think that a lot of people need to sort of think that, like, what I think about Shannon, well, that's a bad example because I'm going to tell him, but like what I think about somebody else, like, even if I think it, they don't need to know what I think. Like it's nobody else's business but my own. Like why do we as humans have this desire to bring other people down and tell them exactly what we're thinking?
I, in the positive connotation, kind of will go to someone and be like, oh, like you've done really well. Like with the weight thing, I'm a little bit funny about it these days, and I kind of try not to like go, oh, wow, you've lost so much weight, because I know there can be with some people a little bit of a negative feeling towards that, because they don't want to be complimented on like losing weight and stuff. But like I will take the time if I see someone, I'm like, oh, wow, your hair looks really nice, or did you like your teeth look really white? Like, what are you doing? Like, or something like that. Like in a positive connotation, I do. Yeah. But I don't understand the mentality with like, oh, your eyelashes need to get done or something like that. That's a really bad one for you because you're like super self-conscious of your eyelashes. But like, I would never imagine like looking at someone and being like, they need to know that this doesn't look right.
Yeah. I always comment on people's like aura, I guess, like you're looking really happy, or you're looking like you're looking really sort of like you're enjoying your life, sort of thing. Like not. I
thought you were gonna go spiritual, like your aura is grey today. I'm like, okay.
No, but like I just think like ultimately everybody in the bariatric community, if you ask them at one point in time, all they want to do is be happy and healthy. So I think one of the best compliments is if you see somebody being super happy and enjoying their life, I feel like that's the biggest compliment that you can say to somebody. Like, you genuinely look happy. Like, I think that's one of the best things that you can say to someone.
Yeah, I think healthy can come across a bit like if you're like, you look so happy and healthy, like, what are you trying to say? Grazing in a paddock or something? Like, what are you trying to say? Yeah. You're like, have you ever had to like, body dysmorphia? Like we've all kind of gone through it in our own kind of forms. What like, how has it been for you? Like looking in the mirror and like, have you always seen you the way you are, or have you always felt like, you have days where you don't see it how it should be? Like, how's that been for you?
Well, it's this bizarre thing of, I always felt like I was a skinny person in a fat person's body. So I'd look at myself and go, you're not supposed to look like this. So it hasn't been too hard looking in the mirror, but I have had some days, looking in the mirror, or even just looking down on yourself when you're in the shower and going, that loose skin on my stomach, I still feel like I'm, like a big person. You just look at it and you go, well, what have I done this for? Have I done this for nothing because I still have this huge stomach? And it's just hard to get your head around. And then you might, wear something, you're like, oh my God, I'm tiny. But it definitely messes with your head.
I had a moment yesterday actually because I went to the shops and got so sidetracked. I went into Spotlight to try and get some paper, but I ended up in the costume aisle. Don't ask. And I found this police girl, like a soldier girl outfit. It was on sale for like half price. Anyway, but it was a small to medium and like a one size fits most sort of thing. But they had small to medium and then large to extra large. And I was like, I picked up the large to extra large because I was like, there's no way a small to medium is going to fit me. And Deb was like, are you like, have you hit your head or something? Like, what are you doing? Why are you picking up the large to extra large? And like, I still to this day, almost 4 years down the track, still don't understand and comprehend. Mind you, like I got home and the small to medium fits. Yeah, however, I'm a very tall person. So that's my issue with those sorts of things. It's more of like a top than a dress on me, if I get that. But it, like, still to this day, almost 4 years down the track, I still struggle immensely with the fact that I don't know what size I am.
It's actually really funny you say that because I noticed there's something I still do to date that is a habit from old. And that was like whenever I go to put a shirt on, I stretch it. So like even now, like I don't need to, like they fit perfectly, but I still do put my arms in it and kind of go like, stretching it out to put it on. And it's funny how that used to be, I was like, because that used to be a thing. Because if it went through the dryer, usually I was like at the top end of like clothing sizes. So like I couldn't get a bigger shirt. So I usually had to get them and stretch them out to make sure they fit. But then you wash them and you dry them and then they shrink a little bit. So every time you had to like kind of stretch them out to make sure they didn't snug into certain places and stuff. I was like, wow, that's a really interesting little movement that I've developed over time that I can't seem to
muscle memory that you just accidentally do.
It's that, and I still remember like the day when I think it was like a year and a half out, and I went to put a shirt on, and I was like, oh, my arms aren't, this isn't going to fix. My arms haven't gone wide enough because they used to be like quite like, wide out, but because it went like this and it was a medium, and I was like, this shirt isn't going to fit. And then I put it on and it fitted, and I was like, whoa, that That was a head game.
You're like, my arms aren't out here.
Literally,
Yeah.
it was like little things. Have you had any like little like moments like that throughout your journey where you've gone, oh wow, it used to be like this and now it's like this, and that's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I have the same habits as you, Shannon. My mum actually taught me that, stretch the t-shirt out with my arms and stuff. So now if I go to put a t-shirt over my head, I don't feel like if my arms don't move out far enough, I'm like, well, that's not going to fit.
Yeah, wow.
That's got to go back. And then you put it on and you go, oh, okay.
yeah, that's awkward. Yeah, that's great. That's funny. I wonder how many other people out there have that, because I had never verbalized that to anyone else.
Question of the week this week then will be, what's your
What
little
is your
weird
quirk?
quirk that you still do?
What movement with your body doesn't match your brain? Like, it's kind of like that for me. Those two things are the big ones. Like after surgery, you struggled with like the early phases. Obviously transitioning from soft foods to solids and stuff like that. Is there anything that you would give advice-wise that you did that helped you manage with that stage of your process? Like, is there for anyone just starting out, is there anything you would like, pass on to them about that?
Probably just most important to just stay calm and just take it slowly. Don't try and force it. It will come eventually. It may take a little bit longer, but that's okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or anything wrong with your sleeve. It just means that you need a little bit longer, and it'll just come. It's just like almost like a click of your fingers. It happens, and you'll just go, "Oh, I can do that now." But you just got to be kind to yourself and just take it easy.
Yeah, because it can be stressful those early stages too. Like I remember like every little move, like every little like twinge or like pull, or you're like, oh my God, my sleeve's ripped, or I've done something to jeopardize it, or, so you're right. Like just trusting and like just staying calm. That's great advice. Like stay calm throughout those early stages, because if you're doing the right thing, you have nothing to worry about. Like,
we say it all the time too. Don't compare yourself to others, because like I know that my surgery, we had a Facebook group which is just for people who have had surgery like with that clinic, and so you kind of connect with other people, and obviously you make friends with them and stuff, and you kind of like, oh, we've moved on to puree stage, blah blah blah, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm able to eat XYZ, and you're like, hang on a second, I can only eat why can't I do that? So it's just kind of like staying true to yourself and what you're doing, just because, Shannon's sitting next to me and he's able to eat a whole avocado on soft stage, and I can only have like one mouthful.
Isn't it funny that you just did that then? Because as you were saying, like, comparing to someone who can eat more, I was thinking I was super self-conscious because I always felt like I could eat more. Like, so like I would look at someone and like, I felt like, especially in our world where, you've stretched your restriction, like, or you've stretched your stomach. And it was always like a thing for me. I'm like, I can eat like more. Our whole process, I've hung out with you when you're always been super restricted. And I've always felt like my restrictions always been more than yours. Like I could always eat more. I don't know if that's my tolerance levels or whether my sleeve was different to yours. But like, I was always self-conscious of like, have I stretched it? Have I done something to, and that was in the back of my head. I know I did for the first year and a half, everything by the book. I kind of
to the point that you literally would text the dietitian.
I was rule Nazi 101, but I still had that in the back of my head, like, but I want this tool to work for me. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize it. So I was always self-conscious of like, how can I only eat, like, especially on Instagram, someone would share like, this is my portion size, like half a mouthful. And I was like, I don't think I've ever been at like in the early stages, I think I was half a mouthful, but I think I was always like a mouthful and a half, like I never was at that stage where it was like, I took a tablespoon today. Like, I don't think I was ever at that. So I was always self-conscious of that. So it's funny you look the opposite way, because you were very restricted. Like I feel like your restriction even today is still quite there. Like I feel like mine is like not.
I think my problem at the moment though is that I eat too fast, and so like I'll scoff, like, because we make the same thing for breakfast. Like I make us exactly the same thing for breakfast, and I'll like scoff half of it, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna vomit because I'm so full. But then like half an hour later, I'll be like, I'm hungry again. So I think, and I did that the other day when I went to Spotlight. I got some dumplings for lunch, and I was like, I had 2 dumplings, and I was like, these taste so good. And then I had 3 left, and I was like, don't eat them now because you'll make yourself feel sick. So I wrapped them up, put them in my little handbag, and then when I got to the car, like 10-15 minutes later, I ate another 2 of them, and I was just kind of like, I'm learning to slow down and listen to my full cue so that I can actually sort of get all the nutrition in.
Because you must be like a grazer. So like because it's funny because I can't remember whose episode it was, and they talked about how having bariatric surgery taught them bad eating habits. They taught them to be a snacker. And I was like, whose episode was that? I can't remember who it was, but they talked about how like that having bariatric surgery, they were never a snacker before, but because they couldn't eat much in one sitting, they developed being a snacker. And that was, you know, in real world without bariatric surgery, being a snacker is a bad thing because that usually means you do put on weight.
Yeah.
But like in bariatric terms, it's like they go, oh, we can't get it in, just break it up over the day. So
but I don't think that, like everyone says not to, like that grazing and snacking is like the key to your undoing. But I think it needs to be more so like just, I know that I got taught to have like 5 or 6 small sized meals a day. Whereas like back in the day when we had normal sized stomachs, it was like you had breakfast, lunch and dinner and you should have 2 snacks in between. Whereas now it's kind of like you have breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, but they're all like small sized meals rather than
dessert, snack.
I'm just all the snacks.
Yeah, that's it. It's like food plus GST.
Yeah.
Snack. It's funny that like because it again, this is this kind of stuff that I'm sure if you sat down with a nutritionist or a dietitian, a bariatric one, they would be able to give you what you should be doing. But we, being 4 years out, we don't really ask those questions when you go in to sit down with a dietitian where like, how many times a day should I be eating?
Well,
like,
how many people are still going to a dietitian 4 years out?
Yeah, well, true. I've been seeing like sports nutritionists and stuff, but they're not the kind of people who are telling you about portion sizes. They're kind of going like, you need to make sure you get all the carbs.
Yeah.
You know, they're not really talking about like from a bariatric standpoint, you should still be restricting or eating this much meals or this blah, blah, blah. Like they don't talk about that. So you're right. Like maybe that's a thing that needs to be like a 4-year checkup to kind of see where you're at.
How much are you eating?
Yeah, just to kind of gauge it. Because like, is it something has been in the back of your head of like, you know, your portion sizes? Like, is it a concern of yours some days? Like, how do you kind of manage with that side of things?
It is and it isn't, I guess. I like to make sure I've got enough and not too much. But yeah, I do find sometimes I'm still forcing myself to finish everything. And it's even still hard for my husband. Like he'll put stuff on my plate and he'll look at me and I'm like, that's enough. And he's like, are you sure? Yeah. You know, and it's like, you know, you forget who you're feeding sometimes, you know. And he'll bring me a plate of food and I'm like, you kidding me? You know, you want me to eat all of that?
Yeah. Is this my meal planning for the week?
Yeah.
Do you get guilt related to food though? Like if your husband brings you out a plate of food and you don't eat the whole thing, do you get guilty if you leave food on the plate?
Not really.
No.
Yeah, I'm sort of like, you've given me too much. You should know by now. You know, it's been 4 years. You know, you're gonna do that, then you know, that's the consequences of not eating it. Yeah,
like take it back.
Yeah.
Tell the chef he gave me too much.
Because I know there's so many people out there that won't eat. Like you know, it's been drilled into us for such a long time. Like Shannon as well. Like starving kids in Africa, or like you can't you can't leave the table until you've eaten all your food and all that sort of thing. So like I know that like I struggled at the very beginning when I put food on my plate. The mentality of yes, I'm full, but I also don't want to leave this because I've been brought up to eat everything on my plate.
Yeah. No, I do get that. Did you like when you were growing up, when you were a kid, like was food like, I guess I don't even know how to really word this. Like I'm kind of saying like when I grew up, I didn't really have money. So like food was looked at as like, you did not waste it because that's money. You know, for you when you were growing up, was it the same thing or was like food a reward? Like, did you have those kind of pre-programmed things in your childhood?
Yeah, I think it was definitely that we, even my parents say it now, that they always used to cook too much. And even now they still do it and it's just them at home. And even when we go over sometimes, it's like we're going around for Christmas dinner. And, I think it's been more of, I guess, like a celebration sort of when you all come together, you know, enjoy a good meal. But, you know, sometimes we'll look at it and go, oh, goodness me, why is there so many different things or why is there so much food? And I think it was a thing we always had to clear our plates and everything.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, like even talking to like people about parenting and stuff, how like people, especially bariatric patients, how they parent when it comes to food. Like, you know, talking about like, you know, eat until you're satisfied, or like, you know, prioritizing the good stuff on your plate and stuff, like how that's changing. Cause like, I definitely know, talking to my friends and stuff, it used to always be like, you do not leave the table until you finish that meal. And if you don't finish it, you eat it for breakfast in the morning. Like there was a lot of like, it was like almost a punishment to not. Yeah. You know, it wasn't even like feeling guilty about things. It was like, you will get punished if you don't finish that. So I'm like, well, I'm a good kid, so I'm going to finish all my food. And I'm a good teenager, and now I'm going to finish all my food. And
I used to get,
as an adult,
you don't get dessert until you finish your dinner.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like you're bribing me to eat more in order for me to be able to then eat
more.
But as a kid, I always wanted to have the ice cream, or especially because we had ice cream on Friday nights and chocolate on Saturday nights. Like my mum was very regimented, so it was kind of like, I only get an opportunity twice a week to eat this stuff that mum knows of. But like, it was kind of like, well, if you don't eat all your dinner, and I was like, well, I've got to eat all my dinner so that I can have ice cream. Like, thinking about that now, that's kind of a screwed up mentality.
It was almost
really.
like you did add to that. So like, if you finish your dinner, it means you've been a good girl, which means you get dessert. And then if you're a really good girl, in 20 years time, you get bariatric surgery. It's where it's leading, all right? So, you know, it's kind of like that's the path, the evolution chart, you know, that's how it heads. You know, for you going, like, obviously just coming out of the ring, you're probably not thinking too much about like what's next in that kind of aspect. But for you moving forward, like whether it's boxing related, life related, do you have any goals that you're kind of focusing on?
Probably not really. Just wait and see what happens after plastics and just go from there.
Oh, yeah, true, yeah.
But I definitely do want to look at, obviously, you know, staying fit and, you know, I guess as everyone wants to, build a bit more muscle tone, get a bit of definition, a bit of strength. And just, see how, I guess, everything settles afterwards.
Because you got your lower body lift. Do you got plans for any other plastics, or is that like, that's all you are going to have?
I would like to have sort of everything. You know, the arms, the bra line lift, the legs.
Yeah. And it's not something you've gauged just yet? Is it just kind of like a pipe dream, like maybe one day at the moment?
Oh, I would like it done like as soon as possible, but I know it's obviously tricky with money and then getting the time off work to recover and everything. So
survive the first round first.
Yeah. See how we go. Yeah, see how the first one goes, and then we'll see.
Plastics scare me. I don't know. I always see it, and I'm like, I don't know. It makes me cringe a little bit. It's like, I feel like they need to create a special procedure for bariatric patients where like they just grab you by the top of your head and they kind of just go and then just take all the skin away. You know?
Like the vacuum cleaner on The Simpsons, how they go,
like Homer. And then just go, cut, stow, you're good to go. See you later. Because I'm like, I was talking to like my neighbor again the other day, the same one I was talking about before, and we talked to, he goes, oh, like loose skin. And I said, well, I'm kind of lucky but unlucky all at the same time because I carried my weight all over. My loose skin is all over, which means it's not kind of like in one place. Like, so like, you know, a lot of people when they have like a lot of stomach fat just end up having like the apron, or, you know, if they have like a lot of like, so my loose skin is all over. So when I'm naked, it's like you can kind of see it, but like in clothes, it's not super obvious. Yeah. Cause it's not like one.
Well, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, but like where I've got loose skin, so to speak, is mainly my tummy and my legs. But my legs, it is what it is. They're a bit floppy, whatever. But my stomach, I think I still have quite a lot of visceral fat in my stomach. So it's not actually like loose skin. It's just like fat still. So like I've lost all my weight, but I still like, I play with it all the time and I'm playing with it now. It's just like I have big Play-Doh. Like it's not loose, saggy skin. It's just a big patch of nothing really.
Big patch of dough.
Fat. Like that's nothing. I can't get rid of that. Like there's no
without surgery.
There's no amount of push-ups or sit-ups that I can do that's going to get rid of that. Like unless I go and get like liposuction or something. But you know, like that's just something that I've got to live with now. So it is what it is.
I think with a lot of those things, it just comes down to like what you mentally can deal with. You know, I'm a firm believer that like if someone has like a tiny little roll, but it's really affecting like their mental state, go for it. Like, 'cause a lot of people turn around and they're like, oh, you shouldn't have plastic surgery. You've hardly even got loose skin. If it's really affecting your mental state, like I could literally like with my loose skin, it doesn't affect my mental state. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to bother, you know, but then someone else in my position may be like, oh, but I feel so self-conscious and and that's affecting their mental state. So I'm a firm believer. Do it. Like, 'cause happiness is the main goal, no matter what we do. So if you're not happy, then fix it.
I'm secretly hoping that if I have to have a cesarean, that they just do a
like,
tuck at the same
you
time.
Fix everything while you're there. Yeah.
Just slice me open, take the baby out, take a little bit of that fat out, and then just sew me up. Like, it's all good.
Yeah. So, like, this is kind of a hard question because I think it's a very broad spectrum question. But, like, you know, what has been your big takeaway from bariatric surgery as a whole?
Probably a lot of more of, I guess, making it more about yourself than everybody else. You know, think about yourself first and your health and your mindset and how you feel. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks anymore. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's about you. And learning that it's okay to be selfish and focus on yourself and do things for yourself first.
No, I agree, because the first thing that came to my head when you were saying that is I think sometimes, especially the way bariatric surgery is moving and social media is moving, I think sometimes you can head into this with like a hope and a dream that like your success is enough to kind of give you more than just like you don't focus on your happiness, you know, like I think some people I've seen go into bariatric surgery where they're like, you know, they've got all their photos ready for their social media stuff, and like, you know, they're kind of going with the approach of, yes, they want to lose weight, but the main focus is, you know, can they create something from this, rather than like, I guess, heading into it with like, okay, let's look down the line of my path and like, this is my path to happiness being the goal. You know, their goal at the end is like, you know, maybe becoming Insta famous, or, you know, becoming like, you know, the next big influencer, the next Mona Anderson, you know what I mean? Like rather than like looking at it as like, hey, let's take this journey for me. And I think that's exactly where you're getting at with what you just said is like, you know, looking at it as like, you know, this is my journey to me being happy rather than me being skinny or me being, you know, an influencer or me being, you know, like kind of understanding that happiness should always be the goal in every scenario, especially when it comes to bariatric surgery.
I find that really sort of a really hard thing to learn to do as well, like putting yourself first and spending time on you. Because I know for me, my personality now, but even more so when I was bigger, was, the way to get people to like me is by me putting them first, by me doing what they want me to do, by me conforming to what they think that I should be doing. Like, that was my way of feeling like I could get people to like me. Yeah. So like after bariatric surgery, it was kind of like, okay, well, I need to start doing what's good for me. And if what's good for me doesn't suit everyone else, then they're not meant to be in my corner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that was a massive transition for me, because I still will do things for people that I probably shouldn't, because it's just who I am as a person.
That's what,
But it's like, it's taken almost 4 years, like 2.5, 3 years for me to be like, no, you know what? I'm not going to do this because I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's going to make you happier than it's going to make me happier. So why would I do that? Like, that's a massive thing, because it was such a big part of who I was as a person.
I think even Mad said it last week when we were talking to her about it. And she said about, you know, kind of we finding your tribe. And I think because like when we head out on bariatric surgery, we're usually a bit overweight and we're kind of like a bit not introverted, but we kind of hide away from society. So we're kind of in the hopes of, we have bariatric surgery, we lose weight, you know, we make more friends, we become more popular within our friends group, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, like, you know, putting yourself out there in situations, which is what bariatric surgery eventually it makes you do, is because you lose the weight, you become less self-conscious, you go and punch people in a ring, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, you meet people that have similar interests as you because you are putting yourself out there. So you don't need to be wasting that energy on, like, you know, trying to please everyone.
Yeah.
Because you will put yourself on the right path, that if you just focus on you, those people that have similar interests and will like you for you come into your life. Like, you cross paths. And that's honestly, like, all the best friends that I've made out of this, that I feel like I can just sit and talk and just not feel self-conscious around and just be myself with, have come around because I've just stayed in my lane. And that was like what Mad said, like, she said, you know, stay in your lane, and then those people will join you in their lane if they're meant to be in your lane. So I think I love that point, because it's again, I think it was such a broad spectrum point that you gave us an answer that went, wow, actually, that's a really good answer, because there's a lot of avenues to that. And I think even just sitting there for a second and thinking about what you just said, for other people will kind of go, oh yeah, you're right, maybe I need to so I love it. I think it's amazing. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, especially fresh out of the ring. I think that's like kind of cool that we get to like sit down and have a chat to you about it straight after, because I think it's super inspiring, because you being, you know, chasing, because I'm sure people sit there and like, why do you want to box? But it's like you found your lane, and we always say it, it's like, as much as I'm a runner and, Lita does weird CrossFit stuff sometimes, it's not always about doing what other people do, but find your lane. For you, probably boxing was never there, but you've fallen in love with it, as you said. And it was probably, if you had have listened to other people and been like, oh, but Shannon runs, so I'm going to try running because it worked for him, so it's going to work for me. You wouldn't have found boxing, and you probably wouldn't have stuck with running like you've stuck with boxing and become successful in that kind of aspect. So I think you're a really inspiring person, had an inspiring process, and I really appreciate you coming on.
It's okay.
And
Great.
I can't wait to see you holding up one of those big belts in the future.
I feel like I
being
just,
like the
I feel like I
heavyweight.
just want to get you one now. Just like ingrain it with like the dirt. I think that'd be freaking super cool. But if someone wants to reach out to you and get in a ring and punch in the face or whatever it is, no, I'm just kidding. Where would be the best place to find you? Like, where's the best place to kind of reach out to you if they want to ask more about your process?
Anywhere really. Probably Instagram's a bit easier.
Yeah.
I've got, Facebook sort of private, that was from the whole, shouldn't have your Facebook on public when you're looking for jobs, make it so they can't find you sort of thing. So
exactly.
that might be a little bit more tricky, but yeah.
Yep. So it's
Instagram definitely.
And it's __.avs.
Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it. No, that's right.
We'll link it.
We love underscores too.
I like making it easy.
Yeah, that's it.
We've got all the underscores too. Don't worry.
We'll chuck it up on screen in the video, and we'll put it in every description underneath. So, guys, if you do want to reach out and ask more questions and be a little bit more inspired by her, then make sure you do. And make sure you go along and give all our guests lots of love, because it takes courage to come on and share your story so openly and honestly. So, anyway, thank you again. That is another episode of
Bari Banter.
Yes, that is another episode of Bari Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.